and it is Luke 20, verses 41 to 45. Then Jesus said to them, "Who is it that said that the Messiah is the son of David? David himself declares in the book of Psalms, 'The Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet.' David calls him Lord. How then can he be his son?" While all the people were listening, Jesus said to his disciples, "Beware of the teachers of the law. They like to walk around in flowing robes and love to be greeted with respect in the marketplaces and have the most important seats in the synagogues and the place of honour at banquets. They devour widows' houses and for a show make lengthy prayers. These men will be punished most severely." So we're following on this morning with the ongoing battle between Jesus and the religious leaders. And it's all about who has the authority. Was it the religion of the day? Or was it Jesus, the Messiah? Now Jesus is quite capable of arguing from Scripture. But he also knew who he was. And it was that authority that overrides everything. Also, he doesn't waste the opportunity to point out what hypocrites the religious order of the day was and how they were more worried about getting the finances and making the show rather than really leading people to God. So Jesus, I think it's probably about round 3 to Jesus by this point. But I want to move on today because I want to link in what we read in the Bible with our life today. And we're very privileged today. Ian's been with us a number of weeks, months, and he's going to share some of his story where he's gone out into the world into very difficult situations as a Christian and as a man of compassion. And it would normally be Luke 21 as well. So, the widow's offering. As Jesus looked up, he saw the rich putting their gifts in the temple treasury. He also saw a poor widow putting 2 very small copper coins. "Truly I tell you," he said, "this poor widow has put in more than all the others. All these people gave their gifts out of their wealth, but she, out of her poverty, put in all she had to live on." I'm not going to talk about money this morning. Although this clearly is a parable about money, I'm not going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about how we look at the world around us and we just think we can't do anything. We look at the refugee situation and we think, what can we do? And sometimes when we think we can't do much, we decide to do nothing. And so I really was inspired by talking to Ian, who actually says, what little I can do, what little I have, can be used. And in God's hands and in God's heart, that is really, really important. So Ian.
Thanks. Thank you. Good morning. Hello, can you hear me all right? Oh, yeah. Oh, right. I'm a bit nervous. I'm neither skilled nor experienced at talking in churches. I just thought when Sally was talking there, the privilege is really mine to be here, and I do thank you for your fellowship and your support, and anything I say is the glory of God. It's nothing I've done. So I just hope that anything that we can take out of my experiences might be used in the context of what we're learning about from the leaders here, especially as this bit about giving. And before I start, I'll just give you a little talk, only a few minutes, about what's my experiences in Greece. But I was thinking and praying about how I could approach today, and I got this really clear picture about giving, because I think the widow's mite is about giving, but it goes much further than just giving money. It's about giving of ourselves, of our time, and it's about sharing, it's about helping people. And it seems to me it's a narrative that goes all the way through the Holy Scriptures. You know, the verse that really spoke to me today was this: loving the world and hating the dark. And I have to say, if I burst into tears today, don't be embarrassed, because I'm not. But I'm an emotional chap, and things have become very emotional in my life because of what's been happening recently. And it's not that I get sad or overwhelmed or anything. It's just that I think God touches us sometimes in a way that you can't help it. So, and the thing that really, the picture that I got in my mind was this. I love the verse. Don't let your left hand know what your right hand's doing. You know, that's what giving is about, isn't it? And it seemed to me, the picture that came really much to my mind, that when you give something, we're actually not giving anything of ours, because nothing belongs to it at all. None of it. You know, if you give £1 or £1 million, what's £1 million to God? It's nothing. The universe, £1 billion, nothing. You know. But what you're doing by giving, the picture I got was that you're turning a switch, and you're letting the current of God's love flow through you. And that's what the kingdom's all about, I think, isn't it? Just loving each other, loving the world, hating the dark. So that's what I got, the picture of turning this switch and just allowing the flow of love. So that's where we come from. The story that I want to share started only a year ago. Oh, by the way, my name's Ian, sorry. I meant to introduce myself, and I'm grateful to be here. I've been on the island since 1996. I came here to work at the hospice, and 99 I met my wife, Marianne, whose husband had died the year before. All that's a story for another day, but nonetheless, the fact is I've been here a few times, and I just think it's a lovely place. The love shines out of this place. It's wonderful. About a year ago, I remember watching on the television the pictures that many of us saw about Calais. You know, the people in Calais trying to get on lorries to get into England, the UK. And like a lot of people, I just think, we're pretty full here, you know, we shouldn't really be having everybody, you know, coming here trying to, you know. I didn't really think it, but that was the way I felt, and I feel embarrassed and ashamed about it. And it wasn't until I saw a Channel 4 documentary which showed some of the individuals at Calais, who they were. And one of them was a little boy, about 10 years old. I think he was from Syria or somewhere, and he was with his mother. And he'd been deliberately run over by some soldiers and thrown him under a car, and his leg was badly smashed, and he was hobbling around. And he just wanted to get to England because he thought the Queen would be able to cure him or get him some treatment, you know. And every day he was hobbling along trying to get onto a truck, and he couldn't. What happened to him, I have no idea, but here we go. Sorry.
Thank you, Lord.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that was when things started to change for me. And then we had the pictures of little Aileen. Do you remember the end of last year, the little boy who was washed up on the beach? And suddenly we started hearing about people going in the water. What's all this about? And I was suddenly seized by this need to do something. I just had to do something. And I couldn't do anything at that time. It was about November, and I was really heavily booked up, and I didn't know what to do or where to go. And then I read an account by a man called Brendan Woodhouse, who was a firefighter from Nottinghamshire, who'd been to the island of Lesbos, and he wrote this incredible account about working at this lighthouse in Lesbos, and a boatload of refugees sort of exploding on the rocks at night. And I say exploding because they have these, they often come over in these dinghies, which are built to, rubber dinghies, that are built to carry about 10, 15 people, and often have 50 or 60 people on, so they're really fragile, hit the rocks on this lighthouse, so they explode, and all the people in the water, and it was an incredible account. And suddenly I just knew that's where I had to go, so that's where I went. As soon as I could, January the 3rd, I booked a flight and went out there. I've got some pictures. Do show them quickly. I know time is a bit short, isn't it? Okay. I haven't got a pointer so you can see where Greece is. Okay. And, oh, good. Tony's put a little dot there. And you can see the island of Lesbos is actually a lot nearer to Turkey than it is to Greece. I didn't realise that before I went out there. It's about a 50-minute flight from Athens in Greece, but only, it's about the narrowest, it's about a 10-kilometre strip of water between Lesbos and so we just zoom in, Martin, thanks. There we go, there again, you can see how close it is. There you can see where Syria is, and over to the side we've got Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, the various places that we hear about on the news. So people come up this way through Turkey and over to Greece and thence into the EU. People can't fly into the EU because of an international law that says if an airline carries somebody who doesn't have valid documentation, they then have to bear the cost of taking them back. So the airlines won't take anybody. People often say, well, why don't they fly in? They can't. So people get into Turkey, they get into the hands of the people smugglers, and they pay anything up to €2,000 per head to cross that 10-kilometre stretch of water. It's a €15 ferry ride, they pay €2,000. So families of 5 or 6 people paying a lot of money. And once they get in the hands of the people smugglers, their freedom has gone altogether, because they're often forced onto these boats at gunpoint. Some of them are often shot. You know, if they refuse to get on, if the weather's bad, bang, someone gets shot, get on. And that's how it is. You know, the humanity has disappeared. So just once again, please. So there we are. So I was at a lighthouse, which is, if you can see, there's a little bump at the top right-hand corner. I was at one of those bumps, and I can't remember which one it was. But that was a place called, next slide please. Next slide, thank you. Next slide please, Martin. There we go, that's the lighthouse, that's Korikos Lighthouse. And it's from the vantage point. There are rocks that go out about 13 metres or so, and you can see Turkey, that's where the Turkey was. And I just hitched up with a group of people, all young people, most amazing group of young people, aged 20, 21, 25, thereabouts, from all over the world. There are about 10 of us working there at any one time, just a loose coalition of people. And we kept a lookout at the lighthouse from this vantage point where the photo was taken from. And if you could see people, we'd try to direct them to a safe landing. If we didn't, then we'd get them out of the water and then transport them up about 5 miles up to the nearest village, and there's a 700-metre rise, so it's really steep. Had to have a 4-wheel drive. I had a little Suzuki Jimny that I had, and often had about 8 people in the back of the Suzuki Jimny. It was cozy. So we get them up there. The weather was freezing. I've never been this cold in my life. And you can perhaps see a tent in the foreground. That's where we sort of slept at night. And two of us were sleeping in the tent, and one person would be looking out. The ruins of the lighthouse, although the lighthouse is working, they were ruined, and it was like a sort of listed building, so you couldn't do very much to the buildings. But inside, we kitted them out. We made floors out of the floors from the boats, the ruined boats and things. We fixed a generator up to put some heaters in there, and put some solar power lights and things. That's another story. And I know time is short. I'm sorry, I'm gabbling on. So, can we move on, please? So that's the kind of boat. That was a very light one. You know, many would have even double that number of people in a boat like this.
Ian, you can go to 10 past.
Can I? Oh, right. Thank you. Okay. So that's the kind of boat that many of them came in. And for the privilege of that ride, they would pay €2,000 per person. Next slide, please. Martin, thanks. The first night I was there, or the first night I did on duty, on watch, there would be 1 or 2 people on watch with some night vision binoculars, and then 2 of us in a tent. And oh dear, I'm woken up in the early hours of the morning just by screaming. And I've never really heard a group of people all screaming for their lives before. I've never heard it. You know, I've worked with people in the hospice and such like that. I've never heard people screaming for their lives. And it's a terrible, terrible sound. I just remember it for the rest of my life. I was so cold, I was sleeping in everything, about 5 layers, including a wetsuit, including sort of oilskins and things. 3 hats on at one time. I need them, I know. So I leapt out, and in fact, this boat had gone up ashore on the rocks, and the people weren't in danger because it was dark, they were in the water, they didn't know they weren't in danger. They were only a few yards offshore, and we got them off. I think there were 16 people on this boat, 10 adults and 6 children. And we got them off, and I got into the swing of how we did it. We got them up into the ruins place. We got the generator going, we got the infrared heaters going on the wall. We had lots of these, these silver blankets that you put on people when they run marathons and things. We got them all wrapped up in those. So it was so cold, even just going in the water for 2 minutes or so, and you'd be frozen within, no time at all with the wind chill and everything. And then we put out a call for help, and we got some of the local villagers used to come down in their pickup trucks, and we used to pay them about €1 per person to transport them. So we get whoever we could in our vehicles, and then the villagers would put some in the back of their pickup truck, and we take them up to the village, and then take them on to a Médecins Sans Frontières camp about 20 kilometres away, and then onwards up to the rest of their trip. Next slide, please. So that was and then a few nights later, this boat came in. There were 120 people on this boat, and likewise, you got them up. You can't see; it's not very steep. I mean, even I could climb up these cliffs. But some of the people on there were grannies, people in their 80s. There were young babies, young children, and even just to get people, you can see it's a bit offshore there, even to get people, when the wind's blowing and when the tide's in and such like, you have to make a chain to get people past them along, passing these little children along. And I can't tell you what a privilege it was to do it. It was just fantastic. It was wonderful, and I don't feel that I did anything other than receive, really. It was just fantastic to be part of that. And so next slide, please. You might wonder what happens to all these boats. Well, they just get pounded up on the rocks. No one takes them away. They get smashed up. The rubber boats are usually punctured by the people themselves because they're told by the people smugglers, if they don't puncture the boats, then they will be put straight back on them and sent back. So they're told all sorts of lies. So usually it would come off and one of them would stick a knife in it, and that would be it. So I would say around at the point of the lighthouse there, at a rough estimate, there must have been, let's say, 10,000 life jackets around there, and let's say 200-300 rubber boats, plus the wreckages of all the wooden boats and things. So around that little point, there was just all this detritus and rubbish of human misery and human trafficking. During the month that I was there from January, just the beginning of January to the beginning of February, over 1,000 people landed here, over 1,000, and there were 30,000 people landed on the island of Lesbos in that time. So that's the rate at which people were coming in. It was beyond belief, really. And then there was all this detritus. So when there weren't people coming in, what we did, could we have the next slide, please? We often grabbed any boat that we could, and we had work parties. We'd go around and cut up the rubber boats and load them onto these boats, onto the rubber boats that we'd managed to salvage, and life jackets and life rubbish and things like that. So we tried to clean up the environment just to help the local population. A beautiful, beautiful island which is just sinking under all this rubbish. So we would take those around. We had access to the mayor had given a place for tipping these things about 3 or 4 kilometres down the coastline. Next slide, please. Thank you. And there were just a million human stories. I'll just tell you a couple briefly. One night, the weather was so bad. I'd been on duty all day with a young man called Anton, who's a really splendid young fellow from Glasgow. He was an engineering student, and he was a bit of a geek, to be honest. And he used to carry around with him in his pocket. In one pocket he'd got a great big manual of engineering in disaster areas. So he could fix up your lighting, he could fix up your generator and things. He got a voltmeter in his back pocket and the multi-tool down there. So, but young Anton, a student up in Glasgow, he used to go down on the bus at weekends to help out at Calais. Yeah. There we go. Sorry. There we go. And one night I'd been on with Anton, and it was cold and cold and cold down at the sea level. But up 700 metres higher up, no one could get through. It was snowing so hard, no one could get through to relieve us. So we were by ourselves. We built this huge great fire inside of these ruins. We piled in bits of old boats and everything was burning up, but it was so cold because all we had really was a blanket covering the door, like a big door like that, and so it was freezing, but we were huddled round nonetheless. And we just sat there chewing the fat, and in walked a man, and sat down, shook our hands, just sat down and rolled up a cigarette and started smoking. We were used to people doing this. Usually the local shepherds would come in and, just share the space with us and things. Anyway, he said hello, some kind of language he was speaking, we didn't know what it was. And then a minute later, somebody else walked in. And then we realised they were wet. And then within about 3 or 4 minutes later, there were 40 or 50 people in there. And we hadn't even realised the boat had landed. All these people had trudged up and they found sanctuary in this little room. Anyway, that was just interesting, sorting those out myself and a young chap from Glasgow. Another human story was, I didn't take many pictures of individuals. And the reason for that is, A, you're invading their privacy. What right do we have to show people in their distress? But B, it's also dangerous for them. Many of the people have relatives still in these countries, and nearly all the people I saw, by the way, came from Iraq, Iran or Afghanistan, nearly all of them. None of them wanted to come to England, by the way. I don't think many of them knew where England was. Mainly they were going for Germany at the time. Germany was the place they wanted to be, or Sweden. But we got them into this place of safety, which was up in the village. It was a converted cheese factory. We made a little medical room in there, and we got dry clothes, and we made a little kitchen and things, very rudimentary. But this little boy here, he was being looked after so attentively by his mother. There we go, there we go. It was fantastic. He'd been in the water only, an hour earlier. It takes about an hour to get up from the water up to this place. And his mother was just looking after him so much, and I tucked him up in that blanket and he just fell asleep. And he was just exhausted and he had a smile on his face. And then the next slide, please. This is his mother. And I just realised she'd been so badly injured by a bomb blast. She got third-degree burns all up her arm, up her leg and everything. She did nothing for herself until she'd attended to her child. I don't know what happened to them after that, but it was a calm peace, it was beautiful. So that was their story. I don't know what happened, but that's probably nearly all I have to say, apart from one nice little positive note. There's one more slide. I don't know if anyone recognises these, but someone in Cowes, a man who runs a company called Seaflex, got the vision of wanting to do something last year. It was in the county press. I wonder if you saw it. And he and his team of people had read about these people falling off the boats. By the way, while I was there, about 200 people died in the water. About 200. So they were going in the water by the hundreds. And he read about it, caught the vision, and they worked night and day for several weeks to design and make these things and to distribute them to local boats. So they gave these things away. They cost £1,500 a piece. They crowdsourced it. Lots of people from the island gave lots of money for it. And they gave these to people with boats. The ferries all carried them. Tankers carried them and such like. They could be inflated in about 4 minutes, thrown over the side, and 60 people can cling on to those until help arrives. I was so moved when I saw that. And I just saw them parked down the road from where we were on a nice day, and I thought, well, people back on the island might like to see it. That was a Seaflex company. I think that's all I want to say, really. I mean, I'm delighted sometime, when we've got more time to share things, with you in more detail. But thank you very much for, letting me share with you today. Thank you.
So, the world we live in is not perfect. Most disasters and problems with this world can be traced back to fallen man. And it's my experience, and probably many of your experiences, for people to say, how can there be a God? Look. And actually, we need to turn that on the head, because the volunteers out in Greece and in other places, they are God in action.
Yes.
And we are God in action. And for those times, Ian was God in action. And Ian's a really interesting chap. I know that they do schools in other countries as well. So I think it's I think we should pray for the people that are out helping in these places. I think we should pray for a solution to the whole Syrian situation. And I think we shouldn't give up hope. I think we need to remember that there is a God in heaven. And we don't understand day by day by day what on earth is going on. But we do know we can pray. And we do know we can act when we're called. If anybody wants to say a prayer, we're going to have a time of prayer now. But feel free to pray out if you'd like to.